All right, so this is going to be a review of The Exorcist Believer, directed by David Gordon Green. Um, from what I've heard, this is a direct sequel to the first Exorcist movie and not all the other ones. And I hope so because I haven't seen those. I've only seen the first one. The first one's iconic. It's great. I just rewatched it in preparation for this the other day on Max. Still great. Still iconic. This movie is bad. If you've heard that this movie's bad, whoever told you that, they're right. This is a bad movie. This is a very obvious and blatant cash grab. Very obvious, especially with one aspect. And we'll talk about that later. But let's get into the story. So we have a father and daughter here. Victor, played by Leslie Odom Jr., and Angela, played by Lydia Jouett. And he's a single father because the mother had died years before when she was still pregnant with Angela. There's this whole thing that happened with that, and that pops up, throughout the movie. So the daughter is hearing the mother's voice and things like that, and is asking the father about it. After school one day, she decides to go with her friend, Catherine, played by Olivia O'Neill. Nell. They decide to go into the woods, and the daughter, Angela, tries to actually commune with her mother or talk to her mother, from beyond. Then those two girls go missing. For 3 days, the dad, Victor, and the parents of the other girl, Catherine, are looking all around for them, everything like that. 3 days later, they're found in a barn. The girls seem to be okay physically and all that, but things are clearly off, and things get creepier and creepier with them until the parents have to come to the realization that they are most likely possessed and that they're going to need an exorcism done on them. Like I said, this movie's bad. Let's talk about positives. I really like the father and daughter, the main father and daughter group in here. The other parents, they don't really get all that much. And the other girl, they don't really get that much development. It's mainly about Victor and Angela, and I like their dynamic. He's a single dad, but he's more of a cool dad. He's parent and friend. He almost seems more like a much older brother than father. I do think that there's some really well done tension with Angela when she comes back and she's starting to lose it. There's a scene where Victor, the dad, goes in to give her breakfast in bed, and I was scared when he was about to open that door because who knows what could be happening in there with this girl. Pretty much anytime he's not in the room with her, you legitimately feel like, well, what's she doing? You legitimately are like, okay, is she doing something to herself? Is she doing something to him? Did she get out somehow? Is she doing something to the neighbor? I think there's some good tension in here. I do think there's some, it's promising at times. The whole thing, there's a thing that has to do with the choice, has to do with the beginning part with the mom and some things that happen towards the end. Because everything, or most everything in the middle, isn't all that great. It doesn't feel as earned, but I do like that idea of choice. And then also, the movie's most definitely, at least from what I can tell, made on the cheapest Blumhouse. But cinematography-wise, I actually thought it looked better than I thought it would look for a movie like this. Let's get to negatives. So even though I like the earlier possession parts with Angela and her father, and the creepiness of it and the tension was done well, even before that, when she's missing, I'm starting to pick up some things. So the parents of Catherine, the other girl, they are obnoxious, and they're talking at the precinct that the daughters are missing, and the father's the worst. He's thinking, oh, well, did you talk to those bums? Well, apparently there's homeless people around where they went missing. And I'm thinking, man, you're really just going to villainize the homeless like that. Okay, all right, it feels a little forced. And then they start going back and forth arguing. Like the other parents are going harder on him than he is on them. And I'm thinking, his daughter is missing too. He's going through this too. Why are you attacking the other parent? And so there's things like that felt like too much and felt forced. The girls come back, and they're obviously possessed, and they're getting worse and worse. And they do what they do in the original movie, where they have these cuts and things, and their faces are different, and their voices are different because they're being possessed, and it's the demon inside of them speaking for them and taking over. The girls' faces, I get that this movie, it seems pretty cheap, but their faces, like the makeup and things to make them look the way that they do, it looked really bad and it was making me laugh. And then the voice was just not working at all. And there was never a point where I thought that voice was actually coming out of these girls. And so I was laughing at, I was things that were supposed to be scary. I was laughing at during the possession stuff, hitting against the glass, and the stuff that happened in the church that's in the trailer, body in the blood, body in the blood. I was laughing. It didn't scare me at all. And it was to the point where they kind of looked like they may have eaten something they're allergic to and swelled up in an odd way or something like that. But it looked, they looked ridiculous. What it was reminding me of was the Green Lantern movie. That guy, I forgot his name. I'm sure he was in the comics or something. But remember, he got infected with parallax goo or whatever in that movie, and so his face was looking all weird. The forced cash grabby thing, the thing that made me think, okay, so this is a cash grab, and that is the involvement. And she's in the trailer, so this isn't a spoiler. The involvement of the mom from the original movie, that is Chris MacNeil, played by Ellen Burstyn. She comes back and she's introduced as a expert on exorcism, as a person who's not part of the Catholic Church or anything, as somebody who wasn't even in the room during the exorcism of her own daughter, something that she would have to prove to people actually happened, I'm sure. But she's been giving, I guess, speeches about it and things like that. She's kind of prominent as a result. I thought that was nonsense. You see her get introduced and she's on a TV and she's been de-aged. I guess the de-aging was fine for as little time as it was on screen, but you hear her voice and it sounds nothing like her now or back in the original movie. I just rewatched it. She didn't sound like that. So that was throwing me off immediately. But Victor is somebody who doesn't believe in any of this. One conversation and he seems to, kind of be on board, and he goes to talk to the mom from the first movie, and the dialogue is heavy-handed at points. At points, it's good, mainly by the dad, Victor, with him not believing things, but there's not enough to that. The dialogue. Somebody posted on Twitter or X or whatever that the mom from the first movie, she's like, "Oh, well, I couldn't be in the exorcism, in the room for the exorcism of my daughter because of the patriarchy. I wasn't part of the patriarchy or something like that." And I was like, "Why? I just rewatched the movie. Why would you want to be in the room for that? Isn't it obvious why you couldn't be in the room for that? It was too dangerous. That's why the two priests that were doing it, yeah, they died. It's nonsense. Her being this is kind of spoiler, kind of, you can go a little bit further, but all it comes down to is her going into a room with the other girl, Catherine, and Catherine messing with her and talking to her about Reagan. I think that was in the trailer. And then the girl ends up, as the girl possessed, ends up taking a cross, a crucifix, and stabs them into her eyes. And so then, from then on, she's in a hospital. And it cuts back to her every now and then. They forced her into this movie, gave her very little to do. Her storyline doesn't make sense. Her dialogue's terrible. And it's just to trick people, I guess, with the trailer, fans of that original movie, to go see this movie, to see her, see what's going on with, I guess, Reagan and things like that. There's kind of a storyline where Reagan and her mom are talking, and that gets paid off at the end. That feels completely unearned. Really, you could take this character out of this movie completely. It would mean nothing. It's so obviously just forced to get people to go see this movie. It gets to a point where the movie's just all over the place. It's a mess. There's a priest in this that's kind of involved but gets no storyline, unlike the priest in the original movie. So he might as well not even be there. And the family come together and they're gonna stand in a circle and try to get this exorcism done on these two girls. And like I said, it's ridiculous. Every now and then there's something that's a little bit creepy. For the most part, it's ridiculous. It was making me laugh because the way the girls looked and the voices and the things that they're saying, none of it's all that unsettling. It's either I'm having no reaction to it at all or I'm laughing. It comes off as funny. It comes off as absurd. So it's a mess. It's a mess of them just standing around. At one point, the dad flies up across the room. I think he got headbutt by Angela. And they do pay off the thing with the mom from the beginning, but because this is so messy and all over the place, by that point, it doesn't feel earned and you don't feel it like you should. There was a guy in there, and at first I wasn't sure if it was him making these noises or saying whatever he was saying. I was like, okay, maybe it's just the movie. I couldn't tell. But during the exorcism, I'm laughing. I'm not really reacting all that well to what's going on because it's ridiculous to me. The way it's playing out, the way the girls look, the way the girls sound, the way the voice is, not working at all for me. But the guy, at one point, something happens, and he's like, oh my God. And I'm thinking to myself, come on, man. You're the reason why these kinds of movies get put out like this, right? You're the sucker. Because I guess I'm here too, but I'm here to review it. You're the sucker. Because why are you pretending? You know this is not scary. Who are you putting on for? There's barely anybody even in the theater right now. It's nonsense. This is not a good movie. I'm giving it trash. I'm giving it trash. And that's it. This is very much, it's just forced. Hey, people go see this Exorcist movie. Hey, we're gonna, have the mom from the original movie come back. We'll get people in seats. Yeah, we'll get the ticket sales. And but nothing of real substance when it comes down to it. There was no need for this. There's no need for it, at least in its current form. It's actually pretty shameless. But anyway, that's it. That's The Exorcist Believer. I wouldn't be as upset if it didn't start off as strong as it did. That's it. We're done.